The Galactic Council chamber was the largest enclosed space ever constructed by intelligent beings. Representatives from every major species filled the ascending rows of seats, and their attention focused on the central platform where speakers addressed the assembled powers. Princess Siora Veltani stood alone on that platform. 1 month had passed since Kang Deho's death, and in that time she had transformed from a grieving princess into something far more dangerous. She had become a symbol. Distinguished representatives, she began, and her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. I come before you today, not to seek justice for the assassination attempt that took my bodyguard's life. The perpetrators have already been found and punished. I come to address a far greater injustice, one that has persisted for decades while we pretended not to notice. The chamber fell silent. Kang Deho was human. Seora continued, to most of you that word carries implications of primitiveness, and inferiority. Humans are considered useful servants at best and expendable tools at worst. But let me tell you what a human actually did for me. She activated a holographic display, and images began appearing in the air around. Her 18 assassination attempts over 7 years. Deho stopped every single one. He learned my routines better than I knew them myself. He identified threats that Valorian security systems missed. He put his body between me and death. Again and again, without ever asking for acknowledgement. And when the final attack came, he did not hesitate. He did not calculate whether my life was worth his own. He simply acted, because that is what humans do. She gestured, and the display changed to show testimonials from across the galaxy. I reached out to other species and asked them to share their experiences with human servants and guards and workers. The responses overwhelmed me. A Minthian ambassador appeared in the display. My human assistant saved our entire delegation from a reactor breach. She stayed behind to manually seal the containment doors, knowing she would not survive the radiation. A Kovathi general spoke next. Human soldiers in my unit have volunteered for suicide missions at 3 times the rate of any other species. Not because they value their lives less, but because they refuse to let their comrades die if there is any alternative. Dozens more testimonials followed, stories of humans sacrificing themselves for employers who barely knew their names. Siora let the weight of evidence settle over the chamber. These are not isolated incidents, she said. This is a pattern. Humans routinely give everything they have for those they serve, and the galaxy has never once acknowledged it. We take their loyalty for granted. We accept their sacrifices as our due. We tell ourselves that they are primitives who do not know any better. I say we are the primitives, murmurs rippled through the assembly. What does the princess propose? Demanded a Fenthian delegate. We cannot simply rewrite centuries of social hierarchy because of one bodyguard's death. You are correct, Siora replied. One death should not require such action, but one death has finally forced me to see what has been happening all along. She produced a formal document and held it high. I propose the Deho Accords, a comprehensive reformation of how humans are treated throughout galactic society. Equal protection under law, the right to hold positions of authority, recognition as full citizens rather than tolerated visitors. This is madness. Lord Fenwick called out from the Valorian section. If we grant humans equal status, the entire social order will what? Siora interrupted. Will finally reflect reality. Will finally acknowledge that humans have earned their place among us 1,000 times over. A commotion erupted near the chamber's main entrance. Security alerts flashed as armed figures burst through the doors. The radical faction, someone shouted. They have breached the perimeter. Chaos spread through the assembly as delegates scrambled for cover. Siora stood firm on the central platform, watching the attackers advance, but they did not get far. Human security officers, dozens of them, moved to intercept the threat. They had been stationed throughout the chamber at Siora's request, and now they demonstrated exactly why humans had earned their reputation. The attackers were neutralized within seconds. A human officer approached Siora and saluted. "Threat contained, Your Highness. No casualties among the delegates." Siora nodded and addressed the stunned assembly. "You just witnessed humans protecting every species in this chamber. Some of you they do not even like very much, but they protected you anyway, because that is who they are." She looked directly at the Fenthian delegate who had challenged her. "Still think they do not deserve recognition." The vote took 3 hours. When the results were announced, the Deho Accords passed with an overwhelming majority. Humans across the galaxy would finally receive the rights and recognition they had earned through countless acts of service and sacrifice. 1 year later, Siora stood before a grave on a hillside in Korea. She was Empress. Now her father had abdicated after the Accords revealed how badly he had misjudged the political landscape. In her hand, she held a medal, the Order of Valoria, the highest honor the Empire could bestow. No human had ever received it before. She knelt and placed the medal on Deho's headstone. "I kept my promise," she said softly. "I became someone who deserved your protection, or at least I am trying to." Yuna stood beside her, no longer a stranger, but family in every way that mattered. The two women had grown close over the past year, bound together by their love for the same man. "He would tell you to stop being so dramatic," Yuna said with a sad smile. Siora laughed despite her tears. "He would, and then he would stand 3 steps behind me. Anyway, just in case someone tried to spoil the moment." She rose and looked out over the valley, where Deho had grown up. "You saved more than my life," she whispered. "You saved your entire species, and I will make sure they never forget." The sun set over the mountains, and 2 women who had lost the same man stood together in comfortable silence. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans were walking into jobs where they would finally be treated with respect. Somewhere children were learning that a human bodyguard had changed history. Somewhere the name Kang Deho was being spoken with reverence. He had given everything he had for one princess, and in doing so, he had given everything to his people. The aftermath had shocked all, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Princess Siora Valtani pressed her face against the viewing window, like a child seeing something wondrous for the first time. She had studied images of humanity's homeworld, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. Blue oceans stretched across the surface, and green land masses rose between them, and white clouds swirled in patterns that seemed almost artistic. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Kang Yuna stood beside her with an expression that mixed pride with sorrow. Deho used to say that Earth was the most dangerous paradise in the galaxy. Everything here evolved to survive against everything else. That is why humans are so strong. You learn to fight before you learned to walk. Ambassador Yoon joined them at the window. "The entire planet is watching, Your Highness. No Valorian royal has ever visited Earth before. Then it is long overdue." Siora replied. She carried a small urn in her arms, the ashes of her bodyguard wrapped in cloth bearing both the Valorian royal crest and the flag of his homeland. Emperor Veltani had forbidden this journey. Siora had gone anyway. The political consequences would be severe, but she no longer cared about politics. The ship landed at a facility outside the city where Deho had been born, and when the doors opened, Siora stepped onto human soil for the first time. The air smelled different here, rich with life and complexity in ways that sterile Valorian environments never matched. A crowd had gathered to witness the arrival, and they stood in respectful silence. There were no cheers or celebration, only solemn recognition of why the princess had come. Siora walked forward, and the crowd parted before her. She noticed that many of them wore small pins showing a simple symbol, a shield with a human silhouette standing guard. "What does that symbol mean?" she asked Yuna. "It started appearing after news of Deho's death spread," Yuna explained. "Humans across the galaxy began wearing it to honor him, and to honor all humans who have protected others." We call it the Guardian's Mark. Siora felt tears threatening to fall, but she held them back. There would be time for tears later. The journey to Dehos childhood home took several hours, and Yuna guided her through landscapes that shifted from urban sprawl to rolling countryside. Mountains rose in the distance, and their peaks touched the clouds. He grew up there, Yuna said, pointing toward a small village nestled in a valley. Our family lived in that region for generations. The village itself was modest by galactic standards, but it held a warmth that Siora had never experienced. In the cold perfection of Valorian architecture, people emerged from their homes to watch the procession pass. An elderly woman reached out and touched Siora's arm as she walked by. "Thank you," the woman said in heavily accented common speech. "Thank you for bringing him home." Siora could only nod in response. The family cemetery sat on a hillside overlooking the valley, and two grave markers already stood there, bearing the names of Deho's parents. Yuna had arranged for a third marker to be placed beside them. The funeral ceremony drew hundreds of mourners from the surrounding region, and many more watched through broadcast feeds. Siora had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and she had learned the traditional rituals of Deho's culture with painstaking attention to detail. She knelt before the gravesite and performed each gesture exactly as she had been taught. She lit incense and bowed 3 times. She poured ceremonial drink onto the earth. She spoke words of farewell in the language of his ancestors, words she had memorized through countless hours of practice. The humans watching seemed stunned by her dedication. They had expected a foreign dignitary going through empty motions. Instead, they witnessed genuine respect and genuine grief. When the ritual was complete, Siora rose and addressed the crowd. Her Korean was imperfect, but she had insisted on speaking in his language. "Kang Deho saved my life," she began. "For 7 years, he stood between me and every danger that came. He never asked for recognition or reward. He only asked for the chance to protect someone." She paused to steady her voice. "I did not understand at first why he chose to serve me. I was an alien princess from a culture that looked down on his people. Why would he give his loyalty to someone like that? Now I understand. Deho did not serve me because I deserved it. He served me because he believed I could become someone who deserved it. He saw potential in me that I could not see in myself, and he died believing that potential would one day be realized. I stand before you today to make a promise. I will spend the rest of my life trying to become the person he believed I could be. I will fight for a galaxy where no human is treated as lesser. I will ensure that his sacrifice means something." She bowed deeply to the gathered crowd. "Thank you for raising a man who taught me what true strength looks like. Not power over others, but the courage to give everything for someone else." After the ceremony, an elderly man approached Siora. His face was weathered with age, and his posture showed the stiffness of old injuries. "You are the princess," he said. "I am. I knew Deho before he left Earth. He came to see me when he decided to take the bodyguard position." "What did he say?" Siora asked. The old man smiled sadly. "He said he had finally found something worth dying for. Asked him if he was sure, and he said he had never been more certain of anything in his life. He said he reminded him of his sister, fierce and stubborn and full of fire. He said protecting you felt like protecting the family he had lost." Siora's composure finally broke, and tears streamed down her face. The old man placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You honored him today more than anyone expected, more than he ever would have asked for. He would be proud of you." Siora returned to Valoria 3 days later. The Emperor summoned her immediately upon her arrival and demanded to know if she had finished embarrassing the royal family. She looked at her father with calm certainty. "I have only begun," she said. "I request an audience with the full Galactic Council." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "For what purpose?" "To change everything." Kang Yuna had spent 3 days in the Valorian Palace. and in that time, her understanding of her brother had been completely transformed. She sat across from Princess Siora in a private garden where flowers from 100 worlds bloomed in careful arrangement. Between them lay the stack of letters Deho had written but never sent, each one a window into the soul of a man Yuna had thought she knew. He blamed himself for our parents, Yuna said quietly. They died from a disease that swept through our region. There was nothing anyone could have done, but Deho convinced himself he should have found a way. Ciara listened with complete attention. He told me once that he felt most at peace when he was protecting someone, I thought. It was simply his nature, but now I understand. He was trying to make up for something that was never his fault. Yuna finished. Every life he saved was supposed to balance the scales, but the scales never balanced because there was no debt to begin with. Ambassador Yoon had joined them, and she observed the exchange with careful interest. This is why humans confuse other species, she said thoughtfully. We carry our pain forward and transform it into purpose. Most aliens see this as inefficient, but they do not understand that it is the source of our strength. Explain what you mean, Siora requested. The ambassador considered her words before responding. Valorians live for thousands of years. When you experience loss, you have time to process it and move on. Humans do not have that luxury. We live perhaps 80 or 90 years. If we are fortunate, we do not have time to simply wait for pain to fade. So we use it, Yuna added. We turn grief into fuel. We make promises to the dead and keep them even when it destroys us. Ciara thought about this for a long moment. Deho kept his promise, she said softly. He protected me until his very last breath. That is what humans do, the ambassador replied. We find something worth dying for, and we hold on to it with everything we have. Aliens call us primitive, but they have never seen what we become when we truly believe in something. A servant approached with hesitation. Your Highness Lord Fenwick and several council members request an audience. Ciora's expression hardened. Tell them I am occupied. They insist. Your Highness, they say it concerns the improper mourning period and the presence of humans in the palace. Yuna stood abruptly. They want us gone. They want to pretend nothing happened, Ciora corrected. They want me to resume my duties and forget that a man gave his life for mine. She rose with deliberate grace. Very well, I will see them. The council members waited in the formal reception hall, and their expressions ranged from concern to barely concealed hostility. Lord Fenwick stepped forward as their spokesman. Your Highness, we come with respect and genuine worry for your well-being. This extended mourning period is affecting your health and your judgment. My judgment, Ciora repeated. Please explain. You have granted humans access to restricted areas of the palace. You have shared classified security footage with foreign nationals. You have publicly elevated a servant to the status of family. All of this is true, Ciora acknowledged, and all of it was my choice to make. But Your Highness, surely you see how it appears. I see exactly how it appears, Ciora interrupted. It appears that I valued a human life. It appears that I recognize sacrifice when I witness it. It appears that I have more honor than any of you. The council members shifted uncomfortably. We do not question your honor, Lady Morath said carefully. We question whether grief has clouded your perspective. My perspective has never been clearer, Ciora replied. For 7 years, kind Deho stood beside me. He learned my routines and my fears and my hopes. He knew when I was lying to myself, and he challenged me to be better. How many of you can say the same about your own guards and servants? Do you even know their names? Silence answered her question. I thought not, Ciora continued. You see them as tools, as furniture that happens to move and breathe. But they are people, and they deserve to be treated as such. Lord Fenwick attempted to regain control of the conversation. Your Highness, we are not here to debate the worth of servants. We are here because your actions are creating diplomatic complications. What complications? Other species are watching, humans across the galaxy are watching. They see a princess mourning a human, and they begin to ask why their own sacrifices go unrecognized. Good, Siora said. Flatly, they should ask those questions. You do not understand, Lord Fenwick pressed. If humans start demanding recognition and respect, it will destabilize the entire social order. They will want equal rights and equal treatment, and they deserve exactly that. Siora cut him off. The council members stared at her in shock. Your Highness, Lady Morith breathed. Do you realize what you are saying? I realize that a human died to save my life, and the galaxy barely noticed. I realize that humans have served us faithfully for decades, and we have given them nothing but contempt in return. Kang Deho was not unique among his kind. He was simply given an opportunity to prove what humans are capable of. She looked at each council member in turn. I am done pretending that their service means nothing. I am done watching them be treated as lesser beings. The Emperor will not support this, Lord Fenwick warned. Then the Emperor will have to explain to the galaxy why he values political convenience over basic decency. Siora turned and walked toward the door. This audience is concluded. I suggest you all spend some time learning the names of the servants who make your lives possible. She paused at the threshold. And spread the word. I intend to travel to Earth to personally deliver Kang Deho's ashes to his homeland. Anyone who attempts to stop me will discover exactly how much I learned from my bodyguard about handling opposition. The doors closed behind her, and the council members stood in stunned silence. Lord Fenwick finally spoke. She cannot be serious. Ambassador Yoon stepped forward from where she had been observing in the shadows. I would not underestimate her if I were you. She has spent 7 years watching a human who never backed down from anything. Some lessons stay with you forever. The Valorian court expected Princess Siora to observe 3 days of mourning for her fallen bodyguard. 3 days was the standard period for servants who died in service to the royal family. It was considered generous by galactic standard. Siora declared 30 days. The announcement sent shockwaves through the palace and beyond. 30 days was the mourning period reserved for members of the royal bloodline, for princes and princesses and emperors who had shaped the fate of civilizations. No servant had ever received such an honor in the 3,000-year history of the Valorian Empire. This is madness, declared Lord Fenwick at the emergency council meeting. His silver robes rustled with agitation as he paced before the assembled nobles. She mourns a human as though he were her brother. The other empires will think Yu's weak. Emperor Veltani sat upon his throne with his face carved from stone. I have already spoken with her, he admitted. She will not be moved. Then force her. Lady Morith suggested, confine her to her chambers until she sees reason. And create a martyr, the Emperor replied. The story has already spread too far. If I imprison my own daughter for mourning too deeply, the galaxy will never let us. Forget it. In her private chambers, Siora sat alone with Deho's personal belongings spread before her. The palace staff had wanted to dispose of everything, but she had threatened to dismiss anyone who touched his things. 7 years of a life reduced to a small collection of items. A worn photograph of 2 young humans, a boy and a girl standing before a house covered in flowering vines. A journal bound in leather that had faded from years of handling, a medal from his military service on Earth that he had never once mentioned to her, and a letter addressed to someone named Yuna that had never been sent. Siora opened the journal with trembling hands. The first entry was dated from the day Deho had arrived at the palace. They assigned me to protect the princess today. The nobles think it is a joke, but I do not care what they think. She looked at me like I was a person, and that is more than most aliens ever do. Siora turned the pages and found years of observations and thoughts, written in careful handwriting. The princess argued with her father today about trade policies. She has a fire in her that reminds me of Yuna. I think she could change things if they ever let her. Stopped another assassination attempt. The third this year. Siora thanked me and actually meant it. I am not used to gratitude from royalty. She asked me about Earth today. Wanted to know about the oceans and the forests and the cities. I told her about the mountains where I grew up. She listened like every word mattered. Tears fell onto the pages, and Siora did not bother to wipe them away. The final entry was written just 2 days before his death. 7 years. I never thought I would find a place where I belonged, but I was wrong. Siora is not just my assignment anymore. She is the closest thing to family. I have left. I would die for her without hesitation. I hope she knows that even though I can never say it. A knock at her door interrupted her grief. Your Highness, a servant called nervously. The human ambassador requests an audience. She says it is urgent. Siora closed the journal and held it against her chest for a moment before setting it aside. Send her in. Ambassador Yumaire entered. With careful steps, she was a small woman with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that held the weight of decades spent fighting for human dignity in a galaxy that offered none. But she was not alone. Behind her stood a young woman who looked strikingly similar to the girl in Deho's photograph, older, now with harder eyes, but unmistakably the same person. Your Highness, the ambassador began. I present Kang Yunashi, is the sister of your fallen bodyguard. Siora rose from her seat immediately. You are his family. Yuna stared at the princess with an expression caught between grief and suspicion. I was his family, she corrected. He left Earth 15 years ago. I barely knew the man he became. Then why have you come? Siora asked Yuna's composure cracked slightly. Because my brother died for you, and I need to know if it meant anything. I need to know if you actually cared about him, or if he was just another disposable human doing a job no alien wanted. The words struck Siora like physical blows. He was not disposable to me, she said quietly. Then prove it. Yuna challenged. Show me who my brother was during all those years. I missed. Siora nodded slowly. Follow me. She led Yuna through the palace corridors to a secure room that few people knew existed. Inside the room, screens lined every wall, displaying recorded footage from years of security archives. Every assassination attempt, Siora explained. Every moment he put himself between me and danger, I kept all of it. She activated the recordings, and Yuna watched in silence as her brother moved through years of footage. She watched him tackle a bomber at a diplomatic dinner. She watched him identify a poisoner by scent alone and knock the cup from Siora's hand. She watched him fight 6 armed attackers in a narrow corridor and emerge victorious with a dislocated shoulder and a smile. He never told me any of this, Yuna whispered. He never told me anything. Siora opened a drawer and retrieved a stack of letters. These are addressed to you. He wrote them over the years but never sent them. Yuna took the letters with shaking hands. Why did he not send them? Read them, Siora said gently. I think you will understand. Yuna opened the first letter and began to read aloud. Dear Yuna, I know I said I would write, but every time I try, I do not know what to say. I left because I could not save Mom and Dad. I could not protect them from the sickness that took them. But maybe I can protect someone else, maybe that will make up for failing the people who mattered most. Yuna's voice broke, and she could not continue. The two women stood together in the secure room, a princess and a sister united by love for the same man. Outside the palace walls, the galaxy continued to watch. Humans everywhere followed the news of the mourning princess with growing amazement. An alien royal was grieving one of their own, as though he truly mattered. For many, it was the first time they had ever seen such recognition. For many, it was the first spark of hope that things could change. But hope alone would not be enough. Change would require action. And Princess Sora Veltani was only beginning to understand what action she would need to take. The plasma bolt came faster than thought itself. Kang Deho had served Princess Siora Beltani for 7 years, and in all that time he had learned one truth above all others. His eyes had to be everywhere at once. The Grand Hall of the Valorian capital shimmered with light from 1,000 floating crystals, and representatives from 3 warring factions had gathered to sign a peace treaty that would end decades of bloodshed. Ciora stood at the center of it all, wearing robes of silver and blue that marked her as the third heir to the Valorian throne. She was tall and graceful, with skin that held a faint purple shimmer and eyes like polished amber. To the aliens in the room, she was royalty beyond question. To Deho, she was simply the person he had sworn to protect. He stood 3 steps behind her, as he always did, and his hand rested near the weapon at his hip. The Valorian guards around them carried ceremonial staffs that could generate powerful shields, but Deho trusted his instincts more than any technology. 7 years ago, when he had been assigned to protect the princess, everyone had seen it as an insult. A human guarding Valorian royalty was unheard of. Humans were considered primitive creatures from a death world, strong and resilient, but lacking the sophistication of the elder species. Ciora's rivals at court had arranged the assignment, hoping to embarrass her. They had not expected Deho to become her most trusted protector. They had not expected him to save her life 17 times. The ceremony reached its final moment, and the 3 faction leaders prepared to place their marks on the treaty. Deho's eyes moved across the crowd, and he noted the position of every guard and every diplomat and every servant carrying refreshments. Something felt wrong. He could not name it, but his gut twisted with warning. Then he saw a flicker of movement near the eastern balcony, where a figure in servant robes raised something that caught the light. Deho did not think, he did not calculate odds or consider consequences. He simply moved. His body slammed into Ciora and drove her toward the ground as the plasma bolt screamed through the air. The impact hit him square in the chest, and pain beyond description tore through his body, but he did not fall. Not yet. His hand found his weapon, and he fired twice. 2 figures dropped from the balcony with perfect holes in their foreheads. Only then did Deho allow his knees to buckle. He crashed to the polished floor, and blood spread beneath him in a widening pool. Ciora scrambled to his side, and her eyes were wide with horror. "Deho!" she screamed, and her voice cracked with desperation. He looked up at her face and managed to smile despite the agony. "You are safe now, princess." His voice came out as barely a whisper. Ciora pressed her hands against the wound in his chest, but the blood would not stop flowing. "Get the medical team," she shouted at the stunned guards around her. A Valorian doctor rushed forward, but he stopped and shook his head. "Your Highness, I do not know human anatomy. I could make it worse if I try to help him." "Then find someone who does," Ciora demanded. But there was no one. Humans were so rare in the Valorian capital that no medical facility had ever prepared to treat them. Deho reached up, and his bloodied hand touched Ciora's cheek. "Do not cry," he said softly. "I chose this. I would choose it again. You cannot leave me," Ciora whispered, and tears streamed down her face, leaving silver trails on her purple skin. 7 years you have protected me. You cannot leave now." Deho's eyes began to lose focus, but his smile remained. "You will be a great ruler someday. I have always known it." His hand fell away from her face. His chest rose once more, and then went still. Princess Ciora Veltani of the Valorian Empire knelt on the floor of the Grand Hall, holding the body of her human bodyguard around her. The galaxy's most powerful beings stood frozen in shock. They had witnessed assassinations before. They had seen guards fall in the line of duty, but they had never seen a Valorian princess weep as though her heart had been torn from her chest. They had never seen royalty cradle a human servant like he was the most precious thing in the universe. Ambassador Torek of the Minthian Federation stepped forward, and his 4 eyes blinked with confusion. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "we should move you to safety. There may be more assassins." Ciora did not look up. "I am not leaving him." "But Your Highness," He is merely He is Kang Deho." Seora cut him off and her voice rang with cold fury. "He served me for 7 years. He saved my life 18 times. He died so that I could live." She finally raised her head, and the tears on her face made her look somehow more frightening than any warrior. "If anyone calls him merely anything ever again, I will personally ensure they regret those words for the rest of their lives." The ambassador stepped back quickly. Emperor Veltani arrived minutes later with a full contingent of royal guards. He surveyed the scene with the calm detachment that had made him a legendary ruler for 3 centuries. "Seora," he said firmly, "release the body. The servants will handle the remains." Seora looked at her father with an expression that made the ancient emperor pause. "His name was Kang Deha," she said slowly. "He was not a servant. He was my protector, and my friend and I will not release him to be disposed of like garbage." "You are making a scene," the emperor warned. "Good," Seora replied. "Let them all see. Let them all remember what a human did for me today." She stood slowly and lifted Deho's body in her arms. The weight should have been too much for her slender frame, but grief gave her strength she did not know she possessed. "I will carry him myself," she announced to the silent hall, "and anyone who tries to stop me will learn exactly what my bodyguard taught me about fighting." No one moved to stop her. The princess walked through the grand hall with the dead human in her arms, and behind her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy watched in stunned silence. News of what happened spread across the stars within hours. A human bodyguard had died saving an alien princess. That was remarkable, but not unprecedented. What shocked the galaxy was everything that came after. What shocked them was the princess who refused to let go. What shocked them was the grief that would reshape the future of human-alien relations forever. But none of them knew that yet. In that moment, there was only a princess carrying her fallen friend through halls that had never seen such a display of mourning for someone considered so far beneath royalty. In that moment, the galaxy began to change. And it all started with a human who gave everything he had for someone who was supposed to be above him.